When you get to a certain age, you could be a little stubborn. But one thing you cannot do is try to force old school production on these young kids.
My next guest.
Okay? Stop trying to do that. I see it time and time and time again, like when some of my, buddies who are a little bit older, they come through and they try to play some beats, and they play some beats and they're like, yo, what artist you think can get on this? And be honest with you, I just tell them like, hey, I don't think nobody's going to get on this right now, especially anybody who's a little younger. I don't think it's going to happen. And then they look at me with this crazy face like, what do you mean? Like, this is classic hip hop. This is real music. This is what they need right now. And then I asked him, like, okay, so in the past 15 years, who has got on any one of your beats except for somebody who was like your age? And then a lot of times they'll look and look kind of confused, like, I don't get it. I don't understand why these kids are not really getting on, these classic beats. These are the beats that, made hip hop what it is. I get it. I totally understand. I get it. But that's the last thing these kids want to hear right now. I'm just being honest with you. Like, these kids right now are on a whole nother wave, just like when we were younger, we were on a whole nother wave. Like, basically, if somebody was born in 1970 and they were 18 in 1988, they were on a different wave than somebody who was born in 1980 and they were 18 in 1998. That 10-year gap was a different wave. And then somebody who was born in 1990 that was 18 in 2008, that was a different wave. So every single decade, there's a different wave all the time. Now, this wave right here is kind of been the same. Maybe in 2028 might be a little bit different, you know what I'm saying? But really, since about 2015 to about now, this has kind of been pretty steady. You can really take a beat from probably about 2014, 2015 and really kind of play it now. It might end up probably being around about the same, just me personally. But there's variations, there's things that have changed, but the 808s haven't changed, the tempos haven't changed, a lot of stuff really hasn't changed. So, you can kind of get away with a beat, maybe, I say not 2014, I'll probably say 2016 all the way up to now. You can probably get away with some of your older beats from then to now, and you'll probably be okay. But we all know that right now, these younger kids are on a different wave. And then it's funny because some of us, I'm going to include me, we get stuck in our old ways. And then when we get stuck in our old ways, we don't necessarily know how stuck we are. You know what I'm saying? We don't know. And it's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad thing, because if you're happy doing what you do, by all means, be happy doing what you do. However, as being somebody who's a little bit older, these kids are not looking at it in the way that we are looking at it, saying, well, we need to bring back the classic hip hop and the classic sounds and whatever, which you can do that. Now, there is some kids out here who are on their vibe. It's very small, but there are some kids who are on that vibe who want to bring that classic hip hop back, but you got to find them. And then really, like here in the States right here, they're not really on that. Now, if you go some places, maybe like in Asia, or if you can go overseas somewhere, there is some classic hip hop with younger kids that are resonating, and they're building like this underground scene, which they do have some scenes here, but it's very limited. And you really got to kind of be in them scenes because they have their own little thing going. But if you're dealing with the masses of what's, doing music right now, the kids that are doing music, most of them kids are on a whole like another vibe. And for you to walk your old butt in there, and yes, I said old because that's the way they look at us. You got to understand, when you were like 18 years old and you heard that somebody was 40, you were like, oh, they're old. Like, they look at us like older people. Okay, if we got any speck of gray hair or anything, or if we talk a little bit slower, or if we sit there and we really think before we speak, they look at us like we're older. So I'm including that too. But if you go in there and you try to force this reality on them, that would turn those kids away so fast because they don't understand that reality. They understand what their peers are listening to. And it doesn't matter who they are, where they come from, what type of background or whatever, that's what they are on. They don't want to hear none of this old mess that we have going on because that's back in the day. Now, what's the solution for this? The main solution for this is to try to incorporate the old with the new. One thing that you can always do is you can take some of your older beats, maybe try to add some stuff to it and add some of the newer sounds and newer effects and stuff on it to try to bring that up to that point, but still leave the classic elements in there. Kind of like what they've been doing for the past 5 or 6 years, where they've been sampling a lot of early 2000 stuff, in which I know a lot of y'all are like, man, they sampling early 2000 stuff. But you got to think, back in like the 80s, they were sampling early 80s stuff, in like 88. So you got to think, after about a decade, you're kind of allowed to go back and start, sampling stuff if you want to do it like that. But they've been sampling a lot of, early to mid 2000 stuff and just putting a nice little beat behind it, speeding it up, slowing it down, and it's been working. So, and even like some of the mid 90s R&B, they've been doing that as well, to where they've been sampling that type of stuff and they've been adding their beats and stuff to it, and everything has been cool. So yes, you can go ahead and sample stuff like that, and you can go back to the 70s, you can go back to the 80s, the 60s, to whatever, the 50s if you want to do it, but you got to understand that it has to be up to date. I can tell you one artist that I like who's been doing that is that artist Big X. Big X the Plug, I believe. He sampled that that one sample that Will Smith sampled, and he sampled a few other samples, and he rapped on them. I don't think he made the beats, but he rapped on those, and he just added like the more modern drums and stuff like that to them, and they sound really good, but they still leave those classic elements in it. So if you want to do something, you can do something like that and then present that to these younger kids. But you trying to bring like an old school like Wu-Tang beat, or if you're trying to bring that classic Nas, or if you're trying to bring anything from the 80s in, that's not gonna happen. And for all of you guys who were born after like 1980, who was really on that mid to late 90s and early 2000s R&B and hip hop, that they don't respect that either. I'm just being honest with you. They don't really respect it unless you try to add some newer elements into it as well. So even if you try to sample something from like the early 2000s or whatever, don't try to make the beat like that. Sample it and then put something that is more up to date on it, and then you will get a better reaction from these kids. So you trying to like bring your old school vibe to it. Yes, in certain situations, yes, that can happen. One situation is Money Long with her records. She brought that 90s, early 2000s vibe to it, but it's still, even the way she wrote it and the way they have put the whole thing together, it still has a more modernized vibe to it. So yes, you can still do that with R&B singers. You can still do that with people who can actually really sing, not these people who hold notes. I'm talking about real singers who might have grew up in the church or, stuff like that. Those singers can bring that out, but it's still very few of those who can do that. Like maybe Money Long, Coco Jones, or like the new young age girls who are bringing that stuff out. But mostly the R&B singers, though, well, quote unquote R&B singers, they're more or less doing trap beats that are slowed down. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to do that in the R&B world, I think it could happen. But even some of those R&B beats that, some of you guys send me, bro, them things are a little dated, like very dated. Okay. Like, the piano strings with the rim shot, with the bells, and the bass that only comes in during the hook. And I'm sad to say this, and even like having a breakdown part, like a vamp part in there, or you know, a bridge, a real bridge where you actually play something different. I'm sorry to say, but that's gone right now. It's gone. It's a few people still doing it, but you don't really hear it to the masses like that. You got to kind of dig for that. But yeah, with all that being said, don't try to force your old school opinions on them kids because they not having it. And a lot of times they'll sit there and laugh at you too. Like I tried it one time. I was like playing an old MC Light record one time to these kids, and I was just playing the record to like show them like, hey, we could take this record and we can revamp it. I'm playing the record, and they're thinking that I'm going to try to do it the exact same way. They're like, nah, bruh, like that's what y'all was on back then. We ain't on that right now. And I'm like, no, wait, wait, no, I didn't mean I was going to like just sample it like that. I was going to take like a part and sample that and slow it down, and then we're going to add this to it. And they didn't get it at first, but then when I did it, they was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. But when I was playing them the original song, they were like, nah, Bolo, we ain't on that. It's been a learning curve for me. I ain't gonna lie, because, you know, at the end of the day, I want to go ahead and do some of the older stuff that I'm more accustomed to listening to when I was younger. But I have to learn that when I was younger, that's what I liked. Now that I'm older, even though I still like it, it's not what the newer generation likes. It's even like dressing. You know, a lot of us who are older, we still dress like we're still 18 and 19. And that's the ones who are stuck. If you see anybody out here still dressing like they're 18 and 19 from their era, they're stuck, okay? You can't be stuck out here, okay? Y'all go ahead and level up and get yourselves right. Whether it's like, you know, dressing, fashion, or whatever, all the way down to your music. Like, you know, a lot of people, some of these kids are doing the retro stuff too, but it's still like their own thing. But, you know, polo collar shirts and everything matching all the way down from the socks and the shoes. Yeah, it's different out here, y'all. And some of y'all are stuck. So don't try to force your views on these kids. Try to make sure that you try to incorporate some of the newer stuff with the older stuff. And I think all of you unks and unkettes would be okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys learned something from it. And if you guys got anything to say, go ahead and leave it in the comment section. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this one. So like I always say on every single video, peace out.
That's what's up.